What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to basketball, and more importantly, welcome back to Bradley Beal rumors. We saw a lot of rumors going around this weekend about Bradley Beal and sounding like the dude might get bought out, which is really interesting. Don't listen to Evan Sider; he doesn't always know what he's talking about. But there's a lot of rumors circling around about Bradley Beal. It sounds like the Suns might just buy him out, which is kind of interesting in and of itself. What was this? Oh, that's NBA Sentinel. I love this Twitter page so much. And for those of you not familiar, NBA Central is supposed to be a parody account of NBA Central, which is like a pretty reputable account, but NBA Central just includes a whole bunch of nonsense to try to trick people on the internet all the time. And it's just a good thing that it exists. But in this video today, I want to explore all the places that I think Bradley Beal could realistically go if he's bought out, because I think he's interesting. I think he's an impactful basketball player. And I know, like, on the internet, we all talk about how Bradley Beal sucks. If you see Bradley Beal's not very good. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's saying that Bradley Beal's, like, not a good basketball player is a really good indicator that you don't actually, like, participate in any, like, critical thinking in your day-to-day life, and you watch a bit of basketball. So I always appreciate when people make it easy for me to tell that. But Bradley Beal's a good basketball player. I mean, you look at some of the numbers, like 17 points a game on great efficiency. I know the Suns haven't been very good. He's been unhealthy and stuff. That's a concern in of itself. It's just the contract, right? The contract is too much for his level of production at this point. It's also important to know, by the way, when you say, like, oh, he only scores 17 points a game. Well, Durant and Booker kind of score a lot of points. There's only been like 8 teams in NBA history that have had like 3 guys score 20 points per game on them. And each of those instances are people scoring like 22 points, 21 points, and like 20 points. Whereas like Booker and Durant are getting you like 27 any given night. And so 17 points makes a lot of sense on a team like that. But regardless, Bradley Beal is a good basketball player. Offensively, he's still one of the better players we have in basketball. Defensively, yes, it wasn't there this last season, but even like the season before, like defensively, he was still like pretty solid. I'm not saying you're going to get a good defensive player out of Bradley Beal at this point. I'm just trying to articulate that Bradley Beal is a valuable basketball player, and if he's going to be on a much cheaper contract going forward, well, then yeah, you've got some interesting things to work with here. And I have to say, just talking about the Phoenix Suns first, let me pull out my giant spreadsheet here to help us take a look at some things. This is what the Phoenix Suns are like currently looking like right now. The 2 second-round picks haven't been signed yet in Rasheer Fleming and Kobe Bryant, but they are taking up 2 of the roster spots. The Suns have been making pretty good moves this offseason. If you were to lay out a game plan for them, you would have said, okay, first things first, we got to duck the aprons or whatever. Like, we got to figure that out. Then we have to try to find a way to get some competitive basketball players on this team to try to help Devin Booker. Well, they did like steps like 2 through like 10, it feels like, but what they didn't do was get below the second apron. We are still about $10 million over, and like this is just like an estimate from other numbers that we're seeing in free agency, and this doesn't include like trade player exceptions, all that, yada, yada, yada. The Suns are just in this like weird spot where they went and added some good players. Like they went and added some big men here, which is cool. They added like a Dylan Brooks, and that's awesome, but, and don't get me wrong, there's still some holes here. Clearly you see that Colin Gillespie is like the only point guard really on the roster, and yes, Devin Booker can play, yada, yada, yada. Like Jalen Green doesn't make a ton of sense for me on this team. I feel like I get that he's a good basketball player and he could become a good basketball player. I feel like he's got a lot of potential to be like a really, really good basketball player. I'm not sure he's actually going to actualize it, but I'm just not sure having the money is worth it, because people would pay to have this guy on their team. Like if you're Brooklyn or Utah or something along those lines, I feel like somebody would take the flyer on him and you could save some money and duck it that way, because right now, Bradley Beal is scheduled to make $53 million and a little bit more even next year. I believe he's also making like $113 million or something like that. And if they buy him out, that's again, you're going to run into a Damian Lillard level situation where we just take a look at it and you're paying like $22-ish million over like the next 5 years. That just, to me, that just doesn't feel like a good solution to things. And they're not even in Milwaukee's like place where Milwaukee was like, well, we could get Miles Turner right now, and that at least made it an interesting conversation to have. And where you ended up siding on that, well, that's up to you. But you know, Phoenix doesn't have some big free agent that it's trying to sign right now, so I don't think that just cutting Bradley Beal's the way to go. But we're here to explore the realm of possibility where he is, so that if you're not a Phoenix Suns team, you can dream and have a little bit of fun today. So I'm really just going to be scrolling throughout all my teams here on on my spreadsheet and saying, okay, if Bradley Beal was to get like bought out and go sign with somebody, what are we talking about then? Is like what are the potential places for him to go? So that's what we're gonna do, and we're just gonna start from the top here at Atlanta. Atlanta technically has 3 open roster spots right now, and they got cap space. So like this realistically could be a team. I would have to imagine that Bradley Beal would only want to go to a place that's a true finals contender. You look at this team, they have Dyson Daniels, they have Nickeil Alexander-Walker, they have Luke Kennard, so while financially they could make it work, it doesn't make a lot of sense for them to bring in a Bradley Beal. I wouldn't hate the move by any means, because it's not like some people think on the internet, you can't just like move Nickeil Alexander-Walker over to the small forward. It's like, yes, he's a wing. He can play either position. That's how basketball works in the modern day. It's just because you see a little shooting guard by his name on the internet doesn't mean you can't slide him over to the 3. Yes, you could put Bradley Beal on this team, but I don't really see a point. I'm not sure why Beal would be particularly interested, because again, I think that these guys are going to get a decent amount of minutes on this team too. So I don't see that as a likely destination. Again, I'm working under the assumption that Bradley Beal will sign for somewhere between a minimum, or maybe he'll get an exception as well, to go sign somewhere so that he can be in a competitive team and have like somewhat of an impactful role on it. Moving over to Brooklyn, I just don't think they're going to be competitive enough. They also have to clear another roster spot, which Drew Timme, like any of these guys down here could be cut at any moment, even Dariq Whitehead in all honesty. So they could make the roster space for it, but clearly they don't make any sense. Boston, on the other hand, they have -2 roster spots currently. That's presuming, though, that either Amari Williams or Shulga, their second-round picks, would get a contract. I'm willing to bet that they probably won't regardless. So that leaves you with 0 open roster spots, to which you can move a J.D. Davidson, you could move a Cada, Xavier Tillman would probably be a good one to move. So you could make it happen. This team's going to be competitive. They could probably use another guard. Maybe you start a Derek White then and a Bradley Beal. You have Simons and Pritchard off the bench. I don't know. I don't think that you can rule out the Celtics in any way or fashion. Now, according to my calculations here, they're technically a second apron team still, so you maybe want to move more of like a Sam Hauser or something, and I'd be amazed if Boston didn't have some more moves up their sleeves in regards to Sam Hauser regardless, just because it doesn't make sense for them to be in this particular spot. Because let's just say you took back very minimal in a contract, you're still a first apron team in this. So I just have to assume that more moves are coming for Boston. So maybe just the price of Bradley Beal alone will be too much for them, but I could see the fit. Charlotte, they really just don't need anyone else. I actually couldn't even fit Sion James in like the actual depth chart here, because the Hornets are just carrying a bunch of people right now because they can, and it's the off season. I have to assume that some of these guys will get moved still at some point this year, but I don't see them needing a Bradley Beal. They have enough guards on this team that will have guaranteed deals, so I don't see it. The Chicago Bulls, not a contender. That's really the only reason. They still have 2 open roster spots. One of them is most likely going to be Josh Giddey. The restricted free agency market's going to move really slowly this offseason, by the way, and expect that to kind of just be the case moving forward. That's just kind of how the offseasons are going to work now. But Bradley Beal, while there could be a role for him on this team, don't think he's going to want to play for them. The Cleveland Cavaliers, they're pretty deep into the second apron. They've got a lot of depth at these positions right now, so while they have the open roster spot, probably going to be spending it elsewhere, I'd have to imagine, but they've got the contender status, so not really seeing it. The Dallas Mavericks, rolling really close to the second apron. They might be over the second apron just with like some sort of traded player exceptions or something else on there, and they technically need to free up a roster spot, which could be anything still, so I just don't see with their current depth chart a need for Bradley Beal. I'm sure they'd like to have Bradley Beal, but, is what it is. The Denver Nuggets, now this is where things start to get a little bit interesting, right? It sounds like Valanciunas is going to be sticking around for them, which is cool. They've still got quite a bit of space before the first apron, so they could bring in Bradley Beal potentially on some sort of like mid-level exception, right? Because Tim Hardaway Jr. and Bruce Brown aren't really using any of that. They've got the open roster spot. It's not necessarily a positional need for them, but they could always use another ball handler, and Bradley Beal can do that to an extent. He's not necessarily going to be a facilitator of offense, but you can give him the basketball and he'll go get some buckets, right? Because if there's one thing that's kind of missing on this team, it's probably after Jamal and Jokic, not really a lot of guys that put the ball on the floor and can create some offense, right? Which is something that you need in the playoffs, but Jokic is going to have the ball most of the time anyway. So I think you can make it work. I think you could definitely make it work. So I can't rule out the Nuggets for that particular reason, but Christian Brown's probably going to be a starter for them regardless. By the way, did y'all see the pictures of Christian Brown this offseason? Dude like shaved his head. He's got like a full beard now. Like, dude hit puberty like something crazy. He's looking swole. I'm like, oh shit. Christian Brown's about to average 30 this year. So that's my takeaway with the Denver Nuggets. The Detroit Pistons, 2 open roster spots currently, and that's assuming that Chaz Lanier would take up one of them, which I wouldn't necessarily assume that. They have plenty of money to do so, and they could probably open up some roles for him. Now, are they pretty top-heavy at kind of the 1 through 3 right now? Yeah, because like Cade and Jaden can kind of slide between positions. Karis LeVert can kind of slide between a bunch of different ones. So can Asar Thompson. Duncan Robinson's here now. You want him on the court. You probably want to keep growing Ron Holland. I hope Marcus Sasser can find his way on the court just because I find him to be an interesting player, but not a clear role for Bradley Beal. Probably not true contenders yet. I know Malik Beasley's got his whole thing going on, and I know they would love to have him back, presuming he won't be in jail. And again, I'm presuming he won't be, because innocent until proven guilty for the gambling charges. But I don't see a clear need for Bradley Beal here, regardless, because they did go and get Karis LeVert. They have Duncan Robinson now, so not seeing that one yet. So right now we're thinking Denver, Atlanta, maybe a Boston. Looking at Golden State, yeah, they could definitely do it. They've got some room before the luxury tax, right? They're clearly kind of playing a slow game right now, which makes a lot of sense if you're the Golden State Warriors. There's a couple people that I could see the Golden State Warriors kind of going after in free agency right now. I actually think Ben Simmons would be a good one for them to go after. But Bradley Beal would be a nice add to this team. He'd be another high-level scorer that this team could really use, because outside of Curry and Jimmy, there is really no offensive creation here whatsoever. There really is none whatsoever. So Bradley Beal sliding into this team, he could probably slide into a starting role right away. The offense would make a lot of sense for him. At least I would hope so, because he's a pretty smart basketball player. So yeah, I could totally see Bradley Beal coming here on a really cheap contract, getting a lot of threes up, playing with a lot of other smart basketball players. Yes, this would probably be one of the oldest teams I'd ever seen constructed before, and we need to make sure we have some ample defenders on the team outside of them. But hey, we'll see. And obviously, still the Jonathan Kuminga stuff is going on, which again, restricted free agency is going to take some time because we're waiting for their dominoes to fall. So that's going to impact things as well as to what the Warriors would take back in a Jonathan Kuminga trade. Again, I'm assuming somebody will take Kuminga. Houston Rockets. I just can't imagine they put Kevin Durant and Beal back on the same team, just because, if anything, I'm not even saying that can't work. I'm just saying out of press, more so than anything else. Like, I feel like the team would just be like, nope, that's probably not a great look for us, right? So I'm gonna say probably no to the Houston Rockets, despite them having 3 open roster spots. They've got the money to make some things happen. I'm gonna assume that they probably don't. The Indiana Pacers, well, they could use some shooting. They've got 1 open roster spot, presuming that Cam Jones and Talon Peter make the roster. I can't imagine Peter does. I bet you Cam Jones does. So we'll presume that there's 2 open roster spots. They could use somebody else to score the basketball this year. That could be a place to go, but are they true contenders? It's hard to say that they can't do it, because their game plan is very much so they can ride a bunch of different hot hands. They've got other good basketball players on the team, but look, no Miles Turner anymore. Obviously, no Halliburton. That feels like a lot to overcome. I like the Jay Huff move, though, by the way. So gonna say no to the Pacers. The Clippers just made the trade. By the way, go watch the video. The Norman Powell trade. They just picked up John Collins, which that signals to me like they know that they could get Bradley Beal, making that kind of move. Like, they opened up that guard spot, which again, I don't think they needed, because come playoff time, Norman Powell did become a little bit redundant, because in the playoffs, you really kind of hyperbolize what your game plan is. So if you gave James Harden the ball like 80% of the time during the regular season, which is not true, but because that'd be a lot, but it would become like 90% during the playoffs, because you really ride on what works and what kind of your main game plan is come playoff time. Norm Powell became a little bit redundant once Kawhi Leonard came back, so there's not necessarily a need for Bradley Beal, but they've got the space to do so before they would hit the first apron. They've got an open roster spot, and they could probably use one more guard on the team. So for that reason, like, there is space for him. So I feel like the Clippers are kind of an early lead for that. And obviously going and playing in California is always a big deal. That'd be a lot of big names on a team to have, like James Harden, Bradley Beal, Kawhi, John Collins, and Zubats. It's like 5 guys that get you 20 points any single night. That's pretty crazy, with a bench of potentially Brook Lopez, Nick Batum, Derek Jones Jr., presumably Bogdanovich and Chris Dunn. That's like another starting 5, man. That's I know it's not a great starting 5, but like, those are very good basketball players. So you could have a good team here. The Lakers. The Lakers don't have any more open roster spots. They signed Thiero to his rookie deal, so that's being reflected here. And he did get like a full standard contract. Now, if they're able to move like a Gabe Vincent or a Maxi Kleber, something like that, sure, because they could probably use another scorer, another shooter. Why not? You probably don't want to take the ball out of Reeves and Luka's hands too much, because those are obviously 2 guys that are really, really good at what they do when they have the basketball. I'm not going to say that I couldn't see a fit, though. I think it would make a lot of sense. I think JJ Redick would use Bradley Beal really well. But I don't know what other moves they're going to be able to make to free up the rotation spot. Is Shake Milton a guaranteed deal? I don't necessarily remember if he is or not. But as of right now, they don't have any open roster spots, and they're riding that first apron pretty closely. So we have to imagine that they'd have to make some other moves in order to do that. So I'm going to say no to the Lakers right now. The Grizzlies. The Grizzlies just need to open up some spots on their roster more so than anything else. I don't know if Javon Small will make the roster, but I have to assume him and Mashak don't, just out of sure quantity. I have to assume that Cole Anthony's also going to get rerouted somewhere else as well, but it just doesn't seem like there's necessarily a need for a Bradley Beal on this team. I feel like they've got a lot of other good things going between KCP, Cam Spencer they like is an interesting young guy, Cedric Howard you just drafted. Doesn't really feel necessary. The Miami Heat, well, they just got Norm Powell, which is kind of like a Bradley Beal, right? So you probably assume that they don't. I'm sure they would take another high-level scorer, because that's something that the Heat really just couldn't do, was generate a lot of offense in the half court, and that's why they went and got Norm Powell, because he's really good at that. But it would feel a little redundant to have Hero, Norm Powell, and like Bradley Beal. Not that it couldn't have some success, but I don't think that would be a good idea. The Milwaukee Bucks here. They've got some luxury tax space. They're dealing with Bradley Beal type effects that the Suns would be dealing with right now, because they got rid of Lillard. They could use more guys that want to have the basketball in their hands currently. They just brought back Ryan Rollins last night on like a 3-year, $12-ish million deal. I believe the last year's non-guaranteed. Ryan Rollins is a solid basketball player, so good. You went and added someone. Micic, it looks like, might try to go back overseas, so you could open up something there. I don't think Bogo makes the full roster, so that would open up the free roster spot for him. I could see it, right? They've got a couple good shooting guards on the team already, good quality at least. Gary Trent Jr., AJ Green, Gary Harris, all more than fine options, right? Bradley Beal, better than all of them. There's no doubt about that. And he could have the basketball a lot more on this team, just because, again, Kevin Porter Jr., Ryan Rollins, not exactly an elite group of point guards. So I could see a fit there. I really could. And the Bucks could be desperate. So, and this is what makes it, it's what, I struggle with this, right? I struggle with this because the Lillard cut was kind of something you had to do on a whim to bring in Miles Turner. I totally understand that. I don't necessarily dislike the move at all. I think it's fine. I just feel like you could have worked something out between like a Lillard and maybe a Bradley Beal move in some capacity. I don't know exactly how that would work, but I feel like you could have rerouted all of these guys somehow, and I still think you could do that with Bradley Beal somehow, some way. But I don't know. I'm not in the front offices, at least not right now. I am technically unemployed just because it's the end of like my fiscal year with my company, right? So we'll probably get picked up by, maybe it'll be the same team, maybe it'll be a different team. Probably in like a month or two is probably when that would happen again. So your boy is a free agent currently, as a reminder. The Timberwolves, they could use more scoring. They could use another ball handler. I don't know if it's Bradley Beal per se, because that would kind of be a redundancy to DiVincenzo. I don't know. I wouldn't hate that move. I just don't think that they need to. And I'm again presuming that Zakarski makes the roster. But regardless, they'd have an open roster spot for him. I I don't know. I don't necessarily know. I think Bradley Beal would be a good vet to have on this team, but I don't think they really need it as much. So what are our best options still? We're still kind of saying maybe. Well, no, what did we conclude with Atlanta? Not really, right? So I might have said that earlier in the video, and that's my apologies. But Boston could be one. We kind of said Denver could be interesting. The Warriors makes a lot of sense. Clippers makes some sense. Milwaukee, maybe. Minnesota, maybe. So, yeah, that's what we're looking at there. Moving on to the Pelicans. Pelicans have one open roster spot, and again, I don't think PV makes it, so they might have two. They already have like a Jordan Poole there and like a Jordan Hawkins who kind of play that similar role. And are they true competitor or contenders? Probably not, so we probably shouldn't even waste any more time on that. The New York Knicks. I'm sure they'd love to have him. They have two open roster spots, and that's one of those, or they could have another one if Diawara doesn't get a full roster spot. They have Jordan Clarkson already. Josh Hart doesn't necessarily play a typical shooting guard role, so you could maybe see Bradley Beal coming into that. I don't know if he wants to take a bench role at this point. He would be a little bit deeper in the rotation, but just looking at that, you'd rather play Bradley Beal than Jordan Clarkson, that's for sure. And then you have Deuce McBride. He's going to get some minutes. Yabusele, one of the more underrated free agent signings, by the way. I think Yabusele could very well be one of the things that pushes this team over to a championship. I could see it. I could totally see it. They're again running really close to that second apron, though, which this team's just going to have to do to remain competitive. I don't know. I can't see them moving anybody else on this team. And look, if you want to be a contender, you got to pay that second apron sometimes. So I could see New York. OKC. I could always see them doing things, but it looks like their roster's full and they feel pretty good about it. Look at all the green on this. Man, OKC, you just do such a good job. Shout out Topic, got on the court for the first time in Summer League. And as a reminder, with Summer League stuff, Summer League basketball is pretty much just an opportunity for guys to stretch their legs. Don't look at it too closely, ever. Otherwise, you'll drive yourself insane. The Orlando Magic. Yeah, they could use shooting. I don't know if he's going to get to play a great role just because they have a bunch of different guards that they're kind of trying to get on the court right now. And I'm not sure if they're true contenders, but they have the space to do so, to push them into the first apron. So maybe you just sign a cheaper guy, because they did give Noah Penda like a guaranteed deal, which I think they should. I think Penda's an interesting player, but nah, I don't really see it. I don't necessarily see Orlando being one to pick him up. Philly. Yeah, I could see Philly doing it. They haven't crossed into the luxury tax as of this moment. They got two open roster spots. We know Janai Broom is going to be a full-time roster player. We just don't know the details of the contract yet, so that's why he's there, and I do think that that's a worthy place. I could totally see Bradley Beal sliding in on this team and being another spacer for him. I believe him and Paul George are actually pretty tight as well, so is it potentially a giant injury team waiting to happen? Sure, but if you can get him for like a minimum or something, why not? East is wide open. You'd have a Tyrese Maxey. Shout out VJ Edgecombe. He had a really good first Summer League game, but maybe you start Beal. I don't know. You'd have a lot of other solid role players on this team, so I could see it. I could totally see Philly being an option. Obviously, Phoenix, this is where he is right now. Again, we talked about some of the things that they need to do in order to fix this situation. I don't think cutting Bradley Beal is a great solution for it, but man, they've done things in a weird order this summer, so shout out the Phoenix Suns, I guess. The Portland Trailblazers, probably not. I actually saw the Trailblazers as being an interesting place to trade Beal to, because you could move a Jeremy Grant. This is when they still had like Ayton and Simons on the team, and I'm like, maybe you could do something like that, and you take Bradley Beal on for a year just to be a good vet on the team, and that's kind of where Drew Holiday's sliding in now, and then you just like buy him out in his last year, which like, yeah, who cares then at that point? They do still have the open roster spots. We're not sure what's going to happen with Drew Holiday. Maybe he's going to stick around long. Maybe he isn't. They've been saying that he's going to stick around, which of course they're going to say that, because otherwise it drops his trade value. So again, online literacy is one thing for all of us to know, right? Yeah, I don't know. They could always use more floor spacing. Why not? But I'm not sure you want to take the ball out of like Scoot and Denny's hands any more than you kind of already did in previous seasons. So I don't think that makes a ton. And they're also not a contender, so that probably doesn't make a ton of sense at all. The Kings, please, for the love of God, no, don't go here. Don't go here. They have an open roster spot and just enough room to sign him. Don't care. Don't care. Let's not do that. What are the Kings doing this offseason? I don't really understand. where they're going with things. The Dennis Schroeder trade gets weirder and weirder. I don't know if Malik Monk is going to end up being like something that gets moved to Detroit as like a part of this in some capacity, because has that trade been finalized yet? I don't know. They would just be such a weird move. Like, yes, they needed a point guard on the roster. I just don't know why you went and got like a competitive one in Dennis Schroeder. So what you can be like the 13th seed or something. This group just doesn't work together. But maybe I'll be proven wrong. The San Antonio Spurs, nope, they just don't need any more guards. They have 2 open roster spots and the money, but can't imagine them doing that. The Toronto Raptors. What are the Raptors doing this offseason too? I don't know. They need to free up some space, which they can easily do because like everybody down here is like not a guaranteed contract. Elijah Martin, I assume, gets a 2-way at some point. But yeah, you could get rid of like a Colin Castleton, AJ Lawson, guys like that, free up space for him. But are the Raptors a true contender? Probably not. The Utah Jazz could probably use a guy like that. They just moved on from John Collins, as we talked about today, and I still need to kind of sort this list and clean it up a little bit now. But I think that they'll buy out Kevin Love, and I bet you KJ Martin isn't here anymore. Maybe Kyle Anderson sticks around, but it looks like they might not have the roster spot available, and I'm not sure why they'd bring him in outside of just wanting to have a good vet on the team. But would Bradley Beal really want to go play for the Utah Jazz, who are clearly just trying to not be very good this year? No, I doubt it. And kind of the same for the Washington Wizards. And the Wizards already have their vets. They got CJ on the team. They got Chris Middleton. They got Marcus Smart. There's just no need. Wizards actually finding themselves in a productive situation in the NBA right now. Clap it up for the Wizards, y'all. They doing it. Good job, Washington. I'm actually really excited to watch some Wizards basketball this year. But, okay, what did we conclude? What are the teams that we could see him going to? We could see him maybe going to Philly. That makes some sense. New York could make some sense. Maybe a Minnesota. Milwaukee we could see. The Clippers probably making the most sense right now for him. Well, maybe not the most sense, but that seems like a solid option for him. Golden State, I might say, makes the most sense for him, and he could slide in and kind of get everything he wants there. Detroit, probably not. Denver would be really cool. Shout out Denver, man, their offseason. It's so funny like what getting a new like front office can do for you sometimes. Like, you guys wanted moves, we're making moves. Moving on, what are the other teams we said? We said maybe a Boston, and then probably not in Atlanta, right? I might have said that yes to Atlanta earlier, but I'm going to say no now. So that's kind of what I'm thinking as far as these moves. Maybe Bradley Beal doesn't get moved or something. I don't know. It's so hard to say, but it scares me so much to think that they could just go over to Phoenix. They cut Bradley Beal and they're just paying him like that $22-ish million over the next like 5 seasons. I know that the Bucks kind of unconsciously gave them permission to do so in that Damian Lillard cut, because they're like, well, now we're not the first ones to do it, right? But I don't know, man. It doesn't feel like the right move. I would much rather, and I'm so serious about this, Suns fans, I'd try to move Jalen Green, because I don't think that this is going to be beneficial. I know it's intriguing to like mess with him, and because there is so much talent there. There's so much talent. I just don't think it's going to be productive. So I'd try to move Jalen Green and take back a little bit less money. Like, let's just say you only took back, and I'm just making numbers up, right? Like $20 million. You get below the second apron, and then maybe you try to trade Bradley Beal, and you're only taking back like 40-ish million. And again, I'm just throwing numbers out there. 1, 2, 3, right? Something like that. Now all of a sudden you're below the aprons. I feel like doing something like that, picking up a few extra draft picks, maybe some other solid role players along the way would be just a lot better for you rather than just buying out Bradley Beal. But that's just my thoughts. You guys can let me know what you think down in the comments below. I just wanted to give you this video because it's an interesting topic, and I do think Bradley Beal will have an effect on the NBA depending on where he goes, so I figured it was worth discussing. But regardless, I want to know your thoughts, and I appreciate you guys for watching. Let's do a comment to the video, why don't we? Alrighty, y'all, comment to the video is coming from our DeAndre Ayton signs with the Lakers video right here. Again, by the way, I'm back from vacation. I'm extremely sunburned everywhere. I'm a very pasty boy, and no matter how much sunscreen I put on, and the fact that I wear a swim shirt when I go outside doesn't protect me still for some reason. Yes, I do wear a swim shirt. It hurts my pride, and I still get sunburned, so really, it's just sad. But anyway, the comment to the video is coming from Frank here that said, do you ever leave your room? How the fuck were you ready for the Ayton news already? To which I said, no, I promise you, I do not leave this room very much. Like, I run my company from right here. And so yeah, when I see news get broken, and if I'm not in a meeting or something, then yeah, I just turn it on and go right to work. It's really pretty simple. But regardless, I appreciate you guys leaving me a comment and all. Looking at content the rest of this week, I have one other planned video for sure. Otherwise, we're probably just going to be reacting to stuff right now. But as always, I appreciate you guys, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks so much. Bye.